You wake up every day believing life is against you until one thought changes everything. What if your struggles aren't fate, but habits of thinking? This story reveals how a single shift in mindset can unlock confidence, success, and a life you never thought was possible. Ethan Cross believed life was something that happened to him, never for him. At 32 years old, he felt permanently behind his friends who seemed to glide effortlessly into success, behind his younger self who once dreamed bigger, behind the life he thought he should have had by now. Every morning his alarm rang at 6:30 a.m., and every morning he hit snooze, not because he was tired, but because he didn't want to face another day that looked exactly like the last. The same crowded bus, the same gray cubicle, the same polite smiles masking quiet frustration. He worked as a junior analyst in a mid-sized firm, a position he had held for nearly 7 years. Promotions passed him by like trains he never boarded. His boss called him reliable, which sounded less like praise and more like a sentence. Reliable meant invisible. On the outside, Ethan's life looked fine. Stable job, small apartment, no major disasters. But inside, there was a constant, low-burning dissatisfaction, a feeling that he was wasting something precious, though he couldn't name exactly what. Every night he told himself tomorrow would be different, and every morning, nothing changed. Ethan had a story he repeated so often it felt like truth. I'm not lucky. I'm not special. Other people have advantages I don't. I missed my chance. These thoughts weren't loud or dramatic. They were quiet, steady, familiar. They played in the background of his life like background music, unnoticed but always shaping the mood. When he didn't apply for a promotion, it was because they won't pick me anyway. When he didn't speak up in meetings, it was because someone else probably has a better idea. When he didn't try something new, it was because, what's the point? His thinking didn't feel like a choice. It felt like reality. And reality, as far as he could tell, was fixed. One rainy Thursday evening, Ethan ducked into a small second-hand bookstore to escape the weather. The shop smelled like old paper and coffee. A bell rang softly as he stepped inside. He wasn't looking for anything in particular. He wandered through the aisles, running his fingers along worn spines, until a book caught his eye. Change your thinking, change your life. He almost laughed. Yeah, right, he muttered. But something about the simplicity of the title stopped him. No flashy promises, no exaggerated claims, just a quiet statement. He flipped it open to a random page. Your life will never rise above the story you tell yourself about who you are. Ethan froze. He read the line again, slower this time. Something about it felt uncomfortably personal, like the author had been watching him for years. He bought the book for $3 and carried it home, unsure why his chest felt so tight. A dangerous idea. That night, instead of scrolling mindlessly on his phone, Ethan read. The book didn't tell him to think positive or pretend everything was perfect. It said something far more unsettling. Your thoughts are not facts. They are habits. Habits. That word stayed with him. The author explained how repeated thoughts create beliefs. Beliefs shape decisions, and decisions determine results. Not overnight, not magically, but slowly, invisibly, relentlessly. The most dangerous part wasn't failure, the book argued. It was unconscious thinking. Ethan closed the book and stared at the ceiling. If this was true, if his thinking had shaped his life, then that meant something terrifying. It meant he had played a role in where he was. And even more terrifying, it meant he could change it. Resistance. The next morning, Ethan woke up feeling strange, not inspired, not energized, uncomfortable. All day, he noticed his thoughts like he never had before. You're going to mess this up. Why even try? Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. The thoughts came automatically, without effort. They felt natural, safe. Changing them felt fake, forced, almost dishonest. When the book suggested replacing limiting thoughts with empowering ones, Ethan scoffed. So I'm just supposed to lie to myself? He said out loud. But the book countered that question directly. You are already lying to yourself, only the lie works against you. That hit hard. He wasn't choosing between truth and lies. He was choosing between disempowering assumptions and empowering ones. Neither could be proven in advance, so why not choose the one that moved him forward? The first small shift. Ethan didn't wake up confident or fearless, but he decided to try one small experiment. At work that week, during a team meeting, his manager asked if anyone had suggestions for improving a stalled project. Normally, Ethan would have stayed silent. His mind immediately offered the usual thought, don't speak, it's not worth the risk. But this time, he paused. And another thought, awkward and unfamiliar, slipped in. What if I contribute anyway? His heart pounded, his palms sweated. Still, he raised his hand. His voice shook slightly as he spoke. He didn't deliver a perfect idea. He didn't sound brilliant, but he spoke. The room didn't laugh. No one dismissed him. In fact, his manager nodded thoughtfully. That's interesting, she said. Let's explore that. It wasn't a promotion. It wasn't a breakthrough. But when Ethan sat back down, something subtle had changed. For the first time in years, he felt present in his own life. One small action led to another. Ethan began noticing how often he avoided opportunities, not because he couldn't handle them, but because he had decided in advance how they would end. So he challenged those decisions. He started asking questions in meetings. He signed up for an online course he had always told himself he was too busy for. He updated his resume, not because he planned to quit, but because he wanted to see himself differently. None of this felt comfortable. Growth, he learned, rarely does, but each small win created evidence that contradicted his old story. And with each contradiction, the story weakened. Failure reframed. Then came a setback. Ethan applied for a promotion he genuinely wanted and didn't get it. Old thoughts rushed back, louder than ever. See, you're not good enough. You just embarrassed yourself. Nothing's changed. For 2 days, he spiraled. Then he opened the book again. One line stood out. Failure is only permanent when you assign it meaning. Ethan realized something painful and powerful. In the past, failure meant identity. It meant, this is who I am. Now, failure could mean feedback. It could mean, what can I learn? What can I improve? What's the next step? The outcome hadn't changed, but meaning had. And meaning changed everything. The new identity. Over the next year, Ethan became someone else, not because his circumstances magically transformed, but because his inner dialogue did. He stopped asking, why does this always happen to me? And started asking, what can I do differently this time? He stopped seeing confidence as something you either had or didn't. He saw it as something you built, one action at a time. Eventually, he did get promoted, but by then, it wasn't the point. He had learned something far more valuable, the real success. One evening, Ethan returned to the same bookstore. The same bell rang, the same smell of old paper and coffee. He found the book that had started it all and smiled. The truth was simple, but not easy. Your life does not change when your circumstances change. Your life changes when you change. And you change by changing the way you think. Not overnight, not perfectly, but deliberately. Because the moment you take control of your thinking, you take control of your life. Final message. You don't need more luck. You don't need permission. You don't need to wait for the perfect moment. You need a new story. Change your thinking. Change your choices. Change your life.